So you guys have said maybe we're going to slow down a little bit this session. You guys have had a couple sessions where it's just full throttle. You guys have gotten a lot done, kind of taking your time this time. But what are some of your priorities to get done in 2019 in terms of your big ones?
You know, there's quite frankly, we do need to slow down. There's not that singular pressing issue out there that we have built consensus around for a period of years, like we've done in the past with right to work and prevailing wage and workers' comp reform. We had spent years building consensus on those types of items. So now the issues that are left they're not quite as time sensitive, first of all, but they're also issues that maybe they're not as big of global issues, but they're issues that are in many ways more difficult to find consensus on. I think that the one thing that we absolutely have to do this year, and we will do that shortly after we come back, is make some tweaks to the tax reform bill. We have been talking back and forth with both Senate and House members about the things that we can all agree on that were truly unintended consequences or misinterpretations by the Revenue Cabinet. And those things I think we have a pretty good agreement on correcting. Some of the other issues that have come up with regards to that, maybe not quite so much consensus on, but we're going to continue to work through those things and try to find something that everybody can feel good about. Look, at the end of the day, I am proud of that bill that we passed. I think it was a good piece of legislation that started us on the path to modernizing a really, really oppressive and bad tax system. And we started that. And I think oftentimes the first step is the most difficult one. And we started it. I'm proud of the fact that we were able to do that, but also am obviously aware of the fact that with these fixes, it will become an even better piece of legislation. So we definitely have to do that. Some other things that we're working on, the school safety issue is obviously a very, very important issue to all of us. I want to, at every opportunity, I want to commend the outstanding work of that working group. Both minority and majority members of both the House and the Senate did outstanding work. There were certainly disagreements on certain issues, and at the end of the day, though, they were able to put together a product that they could all agree on. Some would like to do different things in addition to, and certainly we will continue to have that conversation. But they responded to the charge of being able to come to an agreement that everybody could legitimately, Republicans, Democrats, senators, and House members could stand in the same room and put forth a piece of legislation to say, yes, we all think this is a priority and we all want to pass it. And it carries the designation of both House Bill 1 and Senate Bill 1. And that's an unusual occurrence, but I think it was, obviously only one of us can claim it, and it's going to be a Senate bill that moves. But I think it was important for us to make that symbolic gesture to say that yes, this gets our stamp as being the number one priority is making our schools as safe as they can possibly be. The kinship care issue is very, very important to many of our members. That continues to be a very, very important issue throughout the state. We now have 96,000 kids living with non-parental custodians, and that number's up from just 56,000 4 years ago. So it's an epidemic. The opioid crisis is wreaking havoc, and it's so critically important that we keep these families in as much of a family unit as possible. And we know the facts that if we allow kids to start slipping through those cracks, that we will lose them singularly, one at a time. We will methodically lose them, and they will never be able to reach their potential. So we're just going to have to figure out a way to make that investment and figure out a way to make it happen. Another issue that we are very focused on is welfare reform. That sometimes carries some very negative connotations to it, but I think that the way that we are going to approach this, the way we are approaching it, is in a much more thoughtful way as opposed to a punitive manner, as some have viewed welfare reform in the past. And that is, let's take down the barriers to people entering the workforce. Let's stop creating a system that actually penalizes people for going to work. We've all heard, even if they're anecdotal, we've all heard stories of people that say that it actually it costs money because of the people that are on assistance right now. If they go back to work, then those things are slowly ratcheted back. And let's take away that fear of reward. And there are many rewards beyond financial to reentering the workplace. But let's take those financial concerns away from people reentering the workforce and give them the ability to find that not only that job that creates monetary gain, but also the great personal benefits of being able to be back in the workplace.
So we talked a little bit about tax reform. Let's talk about another tax issue, infrastructure funding.
Mm-hmm.
I've now talked to you, Senate President Stivers, and the governor. You all have talked about the need for infrastructure funding, and I think there's a huge coalition that's pushing, infrastructure funding, increase in that. But I know there's a lot of questions of how. So what comes next on that issue? Do you think that you guys can get it done in the 2019 session? And if we don't, what happens? Because the governor has kind of said, it has to get done pretty soon. We're kind of getting to a point where we're going to lose some money, and we already don't have enough money. So he told me he might call a special session if you guys didn't deal with it. Who knows? But what comes next on that issue?
There are two parts of that debate, I believe. The first is, regardless of what we do presently on infrastructure funding, we know that the formula under which we fund our roads and infrastructure is broken. It is based on a model that is solely and singularly focused on motor fuel consumption. And we know that is a diminishing return. Cars are more fuel efficient. People are driving just as much. They're using a lot less motor fuels, which means that revenues are going down. But the needs, the expenses are continuing to at least remain stagnant, and in most cases going up. The prevalence of electronic vehicles is really becoming a serious issue. They obviously utilize no motor fuels, but they're taking a physical toll and a financial toll on our infrastructure system by doing that. So figuring out how to deal with that, to figure out a long-term solution, I think is crucial to not having to revisit this every single year. As far as doing something as a stopgap measure that would infuse some money into the infrastructure system, I have said from day one on that, I have voted for 3 gas tax increases since I've been in the legislature. Every single one of those was a bipartisan effort. Every single one of them passed by probably a minimum of 75 to 80 votes, both Republican and Democratic support. And we will move some type of infrastructure funding at such time that we have that type of bipartisan buy-in. This is not something that I feel like that, Republicans aren't the only ones that drive on these roads. It's Republicans and Democrats. And when both parties come together with a solution, then I think it will be time to move something. Until then, I'm not real crazy about carrying that entire load by ourselves.
I know there was some bipartisan discussion last year, but do you think those conversations are being had between them?
They are.
Okay, good. So both caucuses, you think, might be able to come together on that issue?
I think there's a chance.
Okay. So let's talk about the governor's race. Speaking of the caucuses, now we have the minority leader, Rocky Adkins, running for governor. A member of your caucus, Robert Goforth, is now running for governor. Governor Matt Bevin has not officially filed his paperwork, but has said multiple times he's going to. Regardless, this is going to be an interesting governor's race.
Sure.
So what impact do you think it's going to have on the legislative session in 2019, if any?
I think maybe it makes some speeches a little more pointed. Maybe it makes a few more political points a little more expressive. But at the end of the day, I believe that it'll have very little impact. I think that we will continue to tackle the big problems of Kentucky. And I can assure you that neither President Stivers nor I will be on the ballot this November for governor. So it's not going to have any impact on the way we conduct the business in our chambers. We're going to continue to tackle the difficult issues of Kentucky, understanding that there will probably be a few more speeches about it along the way. But I don't see it having a big impact on the session. I've never seen a governor's race where everybody just gathered hands and sang kumbaya. So I'm not expecting that. But I do believe that the political rancor, obviously it's worse nationally than it is here in Kentucky, but we're starting to see it really bleed into to the debate and the discussion that we have here. And I think it's really important that we hit a reset button and say, look, everybody that enters public service is doing so for the right reasons. We know that. I mean, I know the people that come into these halls and to these chambers, and I have developed phenomenal friendships along the way with people of both parties. And I know that we can continue to do that. And it's incumbent upon us to continue to set that tone. I think that it is incumbent upon the candidates for governor to set that tone. Because I can tell you there's nothing productive that can happen when we have 32 new members that have come into this body. There's nothing productive that can happen with those people leaving not liking each other and having a better understanding of each other. Because I can tell you, once you have a better understanding of people, it does give you, doesn't mean you're agreeing with their policies. Of course we should have major disagreements on policy, but we also need to understand that those people are representing the people that elected them. And I think that makes us better as a body, and conversely I think it makes us better as a state when we're able to come together like that.